Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello?
Honey, I'm at the mall now and I found this beautiful leather coat. It's only $1,000. Can I get it?
Well, sure, if you like it that much.
Okay, I also stopped by the Mercedes dealership and saw the new model. You know, the one I really like.
How much?
120.
Well, at that price, I want it with all the options.
Great! Oh, and one more thing. The house we wanted last year is back on the market. They're asking 1.5.
We'll make them an offer. But come in at 1.4.
Okay. I love you, baby.
I love you too.
Okay, bye.
Does anybody know whose phone this is?
Live from Joe's mom's basement, it's the Stacking Benjamin Show. And your mission, if you choose to accept it, is simple. Learn how to invest in individual stocks. Whether you plan on sticking with index funds or you're diving into buying your favorite companies, knowing the basics will help you steer the ship better. Today, we say hello to the guy who knows stock trading inside and out. He's co-founder of the Motley Fool, David Gardner. And in our headline segment, the financial advice industry is in the headlights. Who should be your next advisor? One Piece has thoughts, and so do we. And now, 2 guys who are your mission briefing experts, Stacker. It's Joe and G. And Joe, take that ridiculous hat off.
Heck no, because we're celebrating the Motley Fool coming down to the basement today. Hey, everybody, I am the court jester today until David gets here. Joe Saul-Sehy, and across the card table, and you can hear me jingle, by the way.
Yeah, if people can only see this hat, you have no shame. There's zero shame anywhere in your body.
This was my hat when I was on the main stage at FinCon, too. That was fun. The man who has no shame across the card table from me, Mr. OG, is here.
I'm with Doug on this one. I think the hat should find its way into the circular file.
You didn't love it when the Motley Fool guys came out and they would wear the jester hats everywhere and have just a great time. I mean, they shook the world, really, of investing, because here, you know, before the Motley Fool, I think everybody took it so seriously.
Yeah.
And here comes David and his brother Tom with these ridiculous hats, doing all the morning shows and talking crazy about making money, trading stocks, and how fun it can be. It was.
I discovered them shortly after I met you, Joe. It was in our investment club days. And we would have to research stocks, and we would present each month. If it was your month to present, you had to do some research. And that's where I first met you. You came to speak, and I thought, this guy's totally a fool. But then, and then I found the Motley Fool. I'm like, this has to be that guy Joe who came to speak to us.
It's got to be. No, it's my brother by another mother, David Gardner.
But my point is, they've been around a long time, Motley Fool, because that was a long time ago that I was in an investment club.
They have been. In the late 80s, David was a writer for a guy who was huge at the time on PBS. I don't know if either one of you remember Louis Rukeyser. Remember Louis Rukeyser, Wall Street Week? This show would come on and I'd immediately turn it because I thought this guy was so boring. Until I got interested in stocks. Then in the late 80s, then all of a sudden he became a guy who had a show that I really like to watch. But David Gardner,
still boring, but at least there was good content and information.
He wasn't like Bill Brinker, who could be very interesting.
Bob
you
Brinker.
Remember Bill Brinker? Bob Brinker. See, I didn't even, yeah, there you go.
Didn't he host Price is Right?
Maybe not.
I'm
However,
very confused.
great times back in my early days in financial planning and learning how stocks worked. So David Gardner, OG, coming down to the basement.
Sweet.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun show. Plus, as Doug mentioned, a headline. We got action-packed times ahead. So let's introduce our mentor for today. David Gardner is the co-creator of the Motley Fool, which I'm sure I would believe most of our stackers have heard of the Motley Fool. In the early days, as we referenced earlier, these guys made a big splash by talking about how fun individual stocks could be and about how diving into individual stocks was not as difficult as a lot of people wanted to make you think that it was. And so I remember in my early days, even in financial planning, taking out the early Motley Fool books and diving into them to read and get as much insight on all the fun ways that I can dissect a stock and learn about stock investing. However, David and his brother Tom have not been without their share of criticism. No less than Jason Zweig at the Wall Street Journal has talked about how their advice, sometimes outlandish, OG, sometimes
Like their headgear.
sometimes slightly outlandish. Yeah, slightly. And their claims that you can crush mutual funds in 50 minutes a year, Jason wrote, dubious at best. But regardless of all that, their ability to make investing interesting and fun created tons of new stackers over the years, even before we coined the term stacker. So coming up in just a minute, the David Gardner. But before we get to him, we've got a couple of sponsors who make sure we can keep on keeping on. So we'll hear from them. And then David Gardner from the Motley Fool joins us. You may not know that when we started Stacking Benjamins, it was a blog. And even then, just the startup cost, I remember thinking, is this the right thing? And what if I write things and nobody comes, right? Well, luckily, that didn't end up happening. But starting something new isn't just hard. It's terrifying. There's so much work. You're not sure whether it's going to work out. You're not sure if anybody's going to read it. And then we change it to a podcast. Is anybody actually going to listen, right? What if nobody wants all the stuff that we have? Well, had I used Shopify, it would have been even easier, because with their expertise, their helpful tools, and their easy to use platform, that's something that would have made Stacking Benjamins more effective much, much more quickly. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S. Names you've heard of like Heinz and Mattel, Shopify, Gymshark, Aviator Nation, Allbirds, also all Shopify. Get started with your own design studio with hundreds of ready-to-use templates. Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store that matches your brand style. And best yet, Shopify is your commerce expert with world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping to processing returns and beyond. And did I mention that iconic purple Shop Pay button? It's used by millions of businesses around the world. It's why Shopify has the best converting checkout on the planet. It also helps boost conversions, meaning less carts going abandoned and more sales for you. So you're stacking Benjamins much more quickly. Time to turn those what ifs into with Shopify today. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/SB. Go to shopify.com/SB. That's shopify.com/SB. Dell PCs with Intel Inside are built for the moments you plan and the ones you don't. They're for those all-night study sessions, the moment you're working from a cafe and realize every outlet's taken, the times you're deep in your flow and can't be interrupted by an auto update. That's why Dell builds tech that adapts to you. Built with long-lasting batteries so you're not scrambling for an outlet, and built-in intelligence that makes updates around your schedule, not in the middle of it. Find technology built for the way you work at Dell.com/Dell PCs. Built for you. And I'm super happy he's coming down to the basement. Look at this guy. Oh, wait a minute. As you're sitting down, David, we got to make you feel comfortable.
You are looking awesome, Joe. You know, do I have my full cap? Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, for people that don't know, I put my Fool cap on that I wore a couple times when I was keynoting, and you got the Fool cap.
Let's
nice
go.
job.
We're ready.
Well, I got to ask you initially about your career, and I could do this for about 3 minutes, then I'm taking the hat off. But my understanding is you work for Louis Rukeyser early in your career. And I think a lot about Louis Rukeyser. I mean, you know, in high school, I'd see him on TV, and I thought that guy was so boring. And then as I got introduced more into stocks and into investing, I found him incredibly fascinating and hugely intelligent. Why would a guy who worked for Louis Rukeyser, who seemed very straightforward, decide to wear the fool cap and decide that investing could be fun in the early and mid 90s?
Well, I could ask the same of you, Joe, since you are donning the foolish chapeau as well. And so I think both you and I share a background that was more about creative writing in our first 25 years than it was about finance. I'm a big humanities person, so I really believe that part of the beauty of being a humanities person, history, literature, etc., is that we can kind of make connections across broad expanses where much of the world is specializing. And of course, the engineers get all the best salaries coming out of school. But, you know, there is an opportunity for people who are humanities types to start to strut their stuff by making connections broadly. And I think that Rukeyser did that. In his work, he was very eloquent. He was a fun writer. He would write his monologues that would open up Wall Street Week on PBS, the longest running show on PBS for a few decades. And he always did an opening monologue, which he personally had written. And it was fun. He brought wit to it. I realize most people in the world at large don't really think investing or stocks are fun. And most people think stocks are intimidating and want someone else to do their investing. But I think you and I, since we have viewers and listeners of the things that we're doing that are about money and are about investing, I think we probably over-index toward intellectually curious people who are trying to do it better because they recognize the importance of money in their lives. I would say it doesn't matter what your major is in order to have that realization. And in my case, I had the great fortune of being raised by a dad who taught us the stock market. And when I turned 18, he said, here you go. This is a portfolio that I've invested for you from birth. This is all you're ever getting from me. Don't screw up.
Wow. At 18, so there was no estate plan stuff. You got it at 18 and it's yours.
That's right. And, you know, he'd done a great job compounding returns from 0 to 18. I wasn't financially independent, but I was off to an incredibly great start. And I'm always encouraging all of my fellow fools and, all of my Stack and Benjamin friends to get started with your kids as early as possible, because getting on that compounding train is so valuable.
And I feel like, as I read through Rule Breaker, that the goal here too is finding the story behind a company. Because, you know, and you mentioned, we'll get into this a little bit later, that, you know, the phrase long-term investor is an oxymoron. You don't need the words long-term. And as an English guy, I'm like, yes, you don't, but we'll get into that later. But still, this is about finding the story behind the company, not just the technical analysis.
Yeah, I think that is something we can all relate to, first of all. So no matter whether you have an MBA or not, whether you started accounting and took any courses in college or not, I think you can understand Chipotle. I mean, you've probably been there at least once, and you can see how they brought fast casual. They really brought a new standard to what we think of as fast food. Fast forward, we've made about 40 times our money on that investment just by buying early and holding all the way through in a world where so many people don't buy early. They wait, or they hear Chipotle is overvalued, or they don't want to buy stocks directly. They just buy funds. And then eventually, if they do have it, someone tells them to sell, or they get worried about the market. And so they don't really invest, which is a truly beautiful word. And you're rocking a little bit my enjoyment of language. I won't use that phrase that you did because it is a tautology, which means it is a restatement. It is redundant to say the term that you are investing over if it is long, because that's what investing is. There's no such thing as short-term investing. That's just trading, which is the antithesis of investing.
Which is much closer, you write, to guessing as well.
Yeah.
I want to dive into, you start off with 6 habits in your book. And I really want to go through these 6 habits because I think they're habits. And we opened up while you were upstairs talking to Mom, David, we talked about, you know, whether you're somebody that's just going to invest in mutual funds your entire life, indexes, or you're going to dive into individual stocks. I believe these habits and actually knowing the stories behind individual companies and what's going on, still hugely important no matter what you decide to do with it. But as a way to get there, I would love for you to tell a story to our stackers. Speaking of stories and finding the story. So you and your brother, your co-founder, you guys get invited to go on a big show, The View, which is pretty damn amazing. I could just imagine that call. You're like, all right, things are going pretty well. We get to go on The View. Can you tell the story? What did they want you to talk about on The View?
Yeah, the date was July 2nd of 1998, seared in my memory for reasons that will become shortly evident. And we were invited to come on to pick a stock. They had a new host at the time, Lisa Ling, who was back then in her 20s, as pretty much were we. Well, I was in my early 30s, but we were around her age. And they're like, let's have these young guys on and, let's have them pick a stock for Lisa. And then through the show, more viewers will start to learn more about the stock market and investing. And so we did. We met with Lisa, did the pre-call. We're like, Lisa, we think this would be a good one, but we want to make sure you like the company. You like the product. You're on board with this. And she's like, yeah, I like that. Let's go with that. So we came on the show July 2nd of 1998, about a 5-minute appearance. Really positive studio audience, of course, bubbly and all the rest. We picked the stock for Lisa, and
can you wait there for a second? Because I just can't imagine, though, David, going out on that stage. Like, seriously, I would think the things my stomach would be doing. And I've been doing this podcast for a long time. I've done, TV in Detroit. I did for 9 years as the money man there.
Nice.
I still can't imagine sitting right. Was Barbara still on the show?
Yeah, Barbara was on the show, and Meredith Vieira. And
oh, my God. See.
And Lisa Ling was the new kid on the block. And, I will say, Tom and I, at an early age, because we started the Motley Fool quite by mistake, we intentionally started as a print newsletter. We just didn't expect the internet to show up. And then all of a sudden we became a .com company, briefly a .bomb company, as everybody else came down in 2001, a totally separate story. But I'm so happy we're now in our 4th decade of trying to make the world smarter, happier, and richer. So there we were with Lisa Ling, and we picked the stock. And Joe, I know you've read it, so you know the story. I'm not going to fully spoil it, but I am going to mostly spoil it here, because over the next 6 weeks, that stock went down 33% in value. It literally lost 1/3 of its value. And we were slated to come back on and do the Ling's Money Thing was the name of the branded segment. And so we're back 6 weeks later, reintroduced. Everyone's really positive. We're smiling. Lisa knew what was coming, though. We're like, but Lisa's stock is down. And a friend of ours who watches The View says, I think you guys may be the only ones ever booed on The View. And, it was good-natured, but truly, this company had lost 1/3 of its value since we picked it 6 weeks earlier. And we've never been invited back on The View since. And the punchline and the spoiler of the story, what stock was it? Joe, you know what stock it was. What stock was it?
It was a little company called Starbucks.
It was Starbucks. Starbucks lost 1/3 of its value in 6 weeks when CEO Howard Schultz basically said, while I love the results we've just reported, in the year ahead, I think we're coming in the lower end of analysts' expectations. And that immediately sent the stock down maybe 15%. And then it just kept feeding on itself and lost 1/3 of its value. But here's the punchline, and I know you know it's coming. The stock's up 34 times in value since our first appearance on The View. If you'd bought it 1/3 down, you'd be up even more. And the sad thing, it's a fun story because it's kind of a story of time frames, right? It's all about trading or thinking short term versus investing like you would plant seeds in a garden and let that acorn grow, maybe even to become an oak tree one day, which is exactly what Starbucks has done. And we've been invested all the way through. So you end up with 34 times your money. And we've never been invited back to The View in order to close the loop. And I think it would be great if they want to invite us back now. Pretty sure the show's still on the TV, which I definitely know, but I'm pretty sure the producers have changed over. So I doubt today's 2025 producers have any idea of Ling's Money Thing or the Motley Fool appearance. But that was such a fun story because it just sends every message we're trying to as people playing the long game.
Let's walk through your 6 habits then, because these are, I think, really important for people to learn. The first habit is let your winners run. And when I think of winners, by the way, initially I thought stocks that are up, but that's not what you're talking about. What's your definition of a winner?
Well, it's a combination. It certainly includes the stock being up because those are the ones you want to let win. Anytime you look at a stock price, like a graph of Amazon over the years, or Chipotle, or Starbucks, or Netflix, or the list Tesla, the list goes on, what you're seeing is stocks constantly make new highs. But obviously, the only reason those stocks are doing that is because the companies themselves are winners. And they're usually winners in lots of ways. Usually, they're companies people enjoy working for. Like if you have a friend at Chipotle, they're probably having a better time than if they were working at, I won't take a shot at any other fast food restaurant, but generally these are great places to work in their industries. They're also beloved by customers. They would be deeply missed. A company like Chick-fil-A, if it ever disappeared off the face of the earth, would be badly missed.
People
right?
be shaken.
Exactly.
Right?
So that's another sign of winning. And of course, the business results are winning. Winning for your partners and suppliers is winning. Winning for the environment, if that's relevant to your business. For some businesses or industries, it is. Others, not so important. So that's really what winning is about. And then once you've found a winner, Joe, as the sports fans will say, what do winners do? And the right answer is they win. They don't win every time. They don't win all the time, but generally winners win. So that's why habit number one of the Rule Breaker Investor is to let your winners run high.
This might foreshadow, David, some of the other habits, but when you've got a company, well, let's take our Starbucks example. Let's not get off that train. Starbucks goes down a third. Howard Schultz says we need to be more conservative, which I think, by the way, as a CEO is a winning move to do that. I think it's fantastic that he's being conservative. But as an investor, how do you know that that's winning when it appears that Schultz is saying you got to put on the brakes because we're not going to grow as fast?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, first of all, tie goes to holding and always should. I think that for a lot of people, they have an emotional reaction when something goes down and they usually start thinking, I want to get out. And while I totally understand, because I also am human and I feel emotions as well, if the business is one you believe in, and just because for 1 year or 1 quarter, the CEO who, as you just pointed out, Joe, was actually under promising, and then he went on to over deliver. In fact, Starbucks stock, we weren't back on the view a year later, but it had already fully recovered that and was up 40% 1 year later. So I think that tie always goes to holding. I think you have to have a really good reason to jump off the ship. And this comes from somebody who's watched any number of my favorite best stocks sometimes get cut in half multiple times. Netflix, over the course of time that I've held it. If anybody remembers the Quickster debacle where they split their DVD rental business from their streaming business, that stock lost 2/3 of its value inside of 1 year. I had owned it 10 years before that, and I still own it more than 10 years after that. So for me, I believe in the businesses. It's kind of like, the meaning of the word invest, going back to Latin, relates to the word investire in Latin means to wear the clothes, to put on the clothes of. So the mental model I want all Stacking Benjamin fans to have is that it's like the sports home jersey that people wear to the stadium every Sunday. And if their team wins or loses that day, they're going to keep the jersey on. If their team has a bad season, they're going to keep the jersey on. And for many people, it's like a whole life thing. And if more people literally invested their money the exact same way, we would have even more prosperity for sure in our society. So how many people do I encounter like, yeah, I had Apple for a year or two. I should have held. I'm like, yeah, you should have held. And you also should have held NVIDIA, Amazon, Tesla. The list goes on of the winners that you and I are talking about here.
I feel like you're staring right at me, David, because back in the late 90s, when I was a financial planner, long time ago, I remember telling a client of mine, Apple had just done something. It was actually later than that because they just released the iPhone. So what year is this? 2007. They just released the iPhone. Stock goes through the roof. I looked her in the eye because she had maybe 60 or 70% of her portfolio in Apple. And I said, what can they do ever that beats this? Like, how does it get better than this? We need to sell. What a dumbass, David.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Joe. I do want to say for anybody who's been an investor for any meaningful period of time, we all have a story like that. I sure do. And actually, one really important aspect of my book is that I openly talk about my losers. And that's something we've always done at the Motley Fool because it's human. It's true. Too often, Wall Street's full of people who are just talking about the winners, or they want to put somebody who made a single great market call, like beat one bear market. We're all making mistakes, stumbling and bumbling all over the place. Too many people think that investing is more like Olympic figure skating, where if you fall once, you're
done.
Not going to get the gold medal. But actually, it's all about falling all over the ice. It's more like hockey and not even caring that you got checked into the boards or you lost that game. So I've been checked into the boards any number of times. ARM Holdings, which is a phenomenal British company that provides the intellectual property behind a lot of the semiconductor industry. The Brits come up with the ideas, design them, and then they get manufactured by semiconductor companies. I sold that after holding it for 5 years with members following me with their money, and then it went up 9 times in value and got bought out about 6 years later. So, I mean, this is going to happen, but we highly reduce the chances of it happening if we don't actively trade, if we ignore phrases like buy low, sell high. Now, I realize for a lot of people, isn't that what you're supposed to do? And my answer is not so much, because if the third word, the first new thought in your mind after buy low is sell, then you're doing it wrong. And I strongly believe that we should be buying high and trying not to sell at all. And by buying high, this gets back into more of the habits that we're looking for in investors.
Well, that's a fantastic segue, because your second habit is add up, don't double down. What does add up even mean? And how's that different than doubling down?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people, if they have new money, they're like, okay, I'm going to add to the one that's down because I just want to get back to even. There are a lot of people, if they buy, whether it's a fund or a stock, they're often like, I'm going to put money in the one that's down because I just want to get back to, by the way, when it gets back to even, I'll have made some money because I bought down here, and then I'm out because I want to get out of this thing because I'm down, right? There are so many people who have that mentality. And so a lot of rule breaker investing is me maybe helping people think differently or see with new eyes. And so for me, I have been hugely rewarded my whole life long. If I have new money, I only add it to stocks that have gone up for me, which again, sounds like the opposite of what everybody else is supposed to do or doing. And yet, if you really think about those lower left to upper right graphs of many of the companies whose names we've already mentioned, Amazon, NVIDIA, lesser known companies like Intuitive Surgical, which is leading the surgical revolution toward robot, minimally invasive, away from humans cutting us up, Intuitive Surgical, Chipotle, the list goes on. These stocks go from lower left to upper right, which means, Joe and everybody listening, they're constantly making new highs. That's what winning looks like. So you actually want to add to those because they're going to keep going up over time, not immediately. And 1 year in 3, the market drops. And you have to know that because I'm invested my whole life long. So I've eaten every bad bear market, every great financial recession. I was being cut in half along with the rest of the market or anybody else. And we just keep swimming. Dory. And yeah, because I have to have my Pixar references, which by the way was a great stock pick for me until Disney bought my Pixar away from us. But anyway,
but that's a happy ending. It was still a happy ending.
It is. And so just keep swimming is actually a great mental model for many people. That means when I have new money, I'm going to throw it after good. Don't throw good money after bad. And again, a lot of people, that's what they're doing. And if a stock's really nosediving, like let's say Peloton has been for a few years since COVID ended, they keep adding and watching it go lower and then lower after that. Truly, Joe, the only way to go poor investing in the stock market, which by the way goes up 9% annualized. So imagine how hard it is to actually go poor investing in the stock market. The only people who do it are just buying 1 or 2 stocks that keep going down, and they can ruin themselves. And I've seen it happen, and it's sad. And it's not how we should behave. So yeah, habit number 2, add up, don't double down.
It sounds like you're teaching fundamentally people to be momentum investors then.
It could sound like that. And that's a really important point, and one I get into in the book, because I'm not, but I hear how it sounds I might be, especially when we look at some of the other traits and things that I'm doing. Because when I say things like winners win, and let's add to the ones going up, it may sound like, it doesn't matter what's going up, just buy anything. That's really not the case, because this book is called Rule Breaker Investing. I'm teaching you rule breaker habits to follow the best stocks of our time, which I call rule breakers. By definition, the best stocks of our time are not every stock. You don't hear me talking about the also-rans and companies that are meme stocks, crypto junk, other stuff out there. I am ignoring all of that. And I'm focused on the leaders in each industry in important emerging industries. And so this is the group of stocks. When I say things like add up, don't double down. Joe, as you well know, based on your career and your history as an investor, there are stocks like cyclical stocks that do kind of go like a parabola up and down.
Sure.
And I guess for some people, they can try to buy low in the cycle and then sell high in the cycle. It feels exhausting to me when I can just buy and hold a great rule breaker. But that's why I want to make it clear. Momentum would just be, it doesn't even matter what the company does. Most people who are momentum investors are looking at stock charts. They don't even notice, they know the ticker symbol and the shape of the chart pattern. That's momentum investing. What we're doing is rule breaker investing, where we're breaking the rules of how we approach the market.
And to do that, you're looking at the company's financials, their fundamentals quite a bit.
Yeah. And that for me, as an English major, that I'm self-taught. And I believe thanks to the internet and AI and all kinds of aids, a lot of this is free these days. You can learn anything you want to learn. So my first thing I did after college, again, I'd gotten this stock portfolio from my dad when I was 18. I was an English major. So somewhere around the age of 22, I was like, I admit it, I skipped all accounting classes in college. You know what? I'm going to read a great book, a simple book, How to Read a Financial Statement. I did have the benefit of a dad who'd already taught me some stuff, and I do like numbers. Not everybody does, but we got to educate ourselves around how to understand a company's financial statements.
It is just a language, David. I feel like once you know what you're looking for, free cash flow, how much debt does a company have? I feel like now I can go and kind of shorthand. But at first, I'm sure 3/4 of our stackers are like, you lost me at financial statement. It's just a language, and it's like riding a bike.
Yeah. And I do want to say that, like riding a bike, it becomes intuitive, and you don't even have to think about how you're doing it as you're doing it. And once you got it, it becomes habitual. The whole point of the first part of my book that you're diving deep into, Joe, is things become habitual, what you're doing. And habit number 3, I have to underline because it's invest for at least 3 years. And that again that breaks the rules of how the vast majority of players on the market every day are behaving.
Do you know what I love that this gets rid of, David? The number of times that I've had people tell me, well, they're coming out with a new drug, or they have this new thing, or they just changed CEOs. I think the question of, is this a good enough change that it's going to last 3 years? Because when you talk 3 years, you have to look at the whole business, not just the new drug.
You're absolutely right. And like a sports fan, you're probably keeping that jersey on for several years at least, if not 3 decades, which is really what I shoot for. And my best stock picks I've held for decades, like Amazon, and Netflix. These are the phenomenal winners of our time. Obviously, if a company, I know if something became something, if one of my butterflies turned back into a caterpillar or seemed deeply threatened, I wouldn't hold every stock for that long. But the reality is, Joe, the best way toward prosperity, early retirement, is to find a great company or 3 and hold them for at least 3 years, if not 3 decades. And so I really appreciate your point about, a lot of people are looking for catalysts. And good on them, right? They're kind of following it enough to say there is a new drug. So I would certainly pat them on the back and say, let's watch that together. But if they've already formed, before picking any stocks, habit number 3, then they should be coming to you going, and Joe, I need to think about the 3+ year implications of this, because it's not just about this fall's fashions or what the next Big Mac is going to be. A lot of it is about, is this a company I want to be a part owner of? Because that's what you're doing when you're buying stock. You're literally becoming a part owner. By the way, that's a miracle. There are a lot of societies today and historical cultures, it was completely impossible to own a piece of something that you weren't tilling yourself or grinding on yourself. We can do that now. And how fortunate are we that we live in a society where we can become a part owner of a company like NVIDIA? Even though I know very little about semiconductors myself, it has been an absolutely phenomenal company. And one thing I've gotten good at is looking and seeing what wins. And so the pattern recognition that we develop as rule breakers is not industry specific, but where we talk about which stocks to pick.
Yeah.
That comes after the habits. But the key is, it's not like a single technology. We're doing pattern recognition that identifies the winner in all different industries.
The 4th habit that you have is there are 4 tenets you look at when it comes to a company that is their conscious capitalism, you call it. What are the 4 tenets?
These are basically looking at the company itself and then thinking about that for your own behavior, either as a business professional yourself. We have a lot of entrepreneurs watching us right now, small business people. This will make you better as a professional. It'll also help you find better companies. So the 4 tenets of conscious capitalism, and you can Google them. I'll just go real fast through these. The first one is purpose over profit. We look for companies that state a higher purpose. Tesla's purpose statement is not to make as much money as possible selling electric cars. They might be doing that, but their purpose statement is to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. That's what Elon Musk set in place more than a decade ago. And that's how they think about what they're doing. And, you might agree that they're doing it or you might disagree, but the point is that's what they're putting forward as a purpose-driven statement. I'm a purpose-driven person. I like purpose-driven entities. Higher purpose, the best companies are usually marching to the beat of a different drummer. And we'll say even the dirty little secret here is, ironically and perhaps surprisingly, the profits in most industries are going to the companies that aren't purposing profit above all.
Wow.
It's going to companies that are purpose-driven. Chick-fil-A, we mentioned earlier. It's like a leadership academy that happens to be a chicken restaurant. It's remarkable. So we're looking for these companies. That's number 1. Number 2 is they're winning for everybody. 20th century capitalism was largely about just maximizing shareholder value. That's what business people were taught. That's what CEOs said in the paper annual reports that were printed throughout Louis Rukeyser's life. We've moved on to electronic now and digital, but that was how everybody thought about business 50 years ago, Milton Friedman, the fantastic economist, I think maybe the only thing he got wrong was to say the purpose of a corporation is to maximize shareholder value. And conscious capitalism disagrees. We think you should be trying to win for all of your stakeholders, not just taking one group and saying, we're maxing it out for them.
Well, we can go back to Starbucks, David. I mean, with that, look at all the things that Howard Schultz did and does to try to make his employees happier, to make customers happier, to hit for everybody.
Absolutely, Joe. So they're putting baristas through college or giving opportunities that you just would never expect from your local coffee spot. So you're winning for everybody, or you're at least trying. And third and fourth tenets I can go very quickly over because it's just basically conscious leadership, which I liken to servant leadership. Not a sense of entitlement, not the best office or the best parking spot every day for the leader, but rather a leader who is driven to serve the greater purpose of his or her organization for profit. These are the best leaders. And I find most of the best leaders not in politics. I find most of the best leaders my whole life long in business. And they're out there in force, and I'm looking for them. And then the fourth and final one is just conscious culture. So, what are the great companies to work for? Where do people love to go to work? Where do you hear friends say, I love my job? And then think of all the companies where people don't say that or don't feel engaged. So those are the four tenets of conscious capitalism. And I want that to become habitual thinking for anybody who wants to break the rules with me.
I was thinking as you were talking over like the last 30 years and thinking of what are some companies that maybe used to be for everybody and kind of morphed away from that, no longer were rule breakers. And I'm thinking about when do you get off the train? So, and I don't know if this is a company you'd agree with or not, but I look back at the heyday of General Electric as an example. General Electric used to be like the company, and Jack Welch talking about leadership. I remember reading his statements as CEO. It was all about if we take care of our employees. Of course, he fired a bunch of his employees, but the ones that stayed around, he's like, if we compensate them well and we take care of them and we make sure they have the tools, they're going to take care of our customers. And look at what happened to General Electric during that time, for better or worse. But then the leadership changed, the company changed. Like, at what point do you get off that coaster? Is it when these tenets are no longer what the company believes in anymore?
I think they give you a clue. I sure do. I think that they're, I'm not trying to present each as a litmus test, but anybody could treat it that way. And you're right. There are different leaders at different points. Like Microsoft under Bill Gates was a phenomenal startup into a mega awesome company. Not everybody liked Microsoft. And there was the whole, I'm a PC, I'm a Mac, who's really cool out there. When Steve Ballmer showed up, the company went sideways for his leadership over 10 years. So that would be another big, well-known example. And then he steps aside and there's a transition. So we end up finding, again, another purpose-driven leader who's been absolutely phenomenal. And I'm sorry to say I've never recommended Microsoft, not in the Gates era, not in the Ballmer era, not in the Nadella era. We don't have to have them all, Joe. It's good enough to have Apple, which I have had since, ironically, the year that you sold, because literally in 2008, I recommended to Motley Fool members for the first time buy Apple. And I felt like I was so late. Like we'd all grown up with Apple.
Yeah.
Jobs was at Apple. The iPhone had already come out the year before. I finally was like, we didn't have anybody else following Apple at the Motley Fool. I was like, I'm going to recommend the stock now because I think they're well positioned. I know they're big. And I'm not meaning to brag here and make anybody feel bad, but it is up 35 times in value since 2008, which is absolutely phenomenal. But again, shows you that one of the big misnomers and mistakes people make is they think they missed blank. They missed Amazon. They missed Apple. They missed any of the other great companies we've talked about in our conversation. You haven't. Winners keep winning. And it is to your own detriment. You're going to pay a big opportunity cost if you think you missed blank. Now, obviously, if we're talking about junk companies or a meme stock like GameStop, which I would absolutely never invest in, yeah, you may well have missed it if it skyrocketed 10 times in one day because it got hyped online and it's not worth that. Sure, but we're not talking about those companies. We're talking about the rule breakers, and you rarely miss great companies like Netflix, which is so well positioned today for the next 10 years. Etc. So anyway, that's my way of saying you're right, Joe. I love your example of GE. And I think using these as a litmus test or a lens that you can evaluate companies does help you evaluate and think it through.
I'm going to brag back at you. While you were ignoring Microsoft when they hired Satya and I started hearing some of the four tenets, I picked up Microsoft. It's now my biggest holding.
I love that. I really do love that. That's not magic. That's actually very logical, because if we have found excellence, and then we buy excellence, and adding to excellence over time is we're setting ourselves up for inevitably, I think, logically, prosperity. If, on the other hand, we chase stuff, we guess, we gamble, all these other things that aren't about finding and holding excellence, we're not going to have as much prosperity. And the middle ground is that some people find good companies, but sadly, they don't actually hold them. So the only way you'll ever get a 100-bagger, and I've recommended 7 of them to Motley Fool members over the years, the only way you're ever going to get a 100-bagger, a stock that goes up 100 or more times in value for you, is if you hold it, to let it do that for you, and many will not.
I feel like a good wine. Let it breathe. Let it breathe.
Great comparison.
We've got 2 more here, and this is where we're going to get slightly technical for our stackers. Max opening position, 5% of your portfolio.
Yeah, I mean, this is math, 5%, but really what that means is when you start a new position, don't invest more than 5%, $1 in 20 of your overall net worth into any one position.
Which means you're holding then at least 20 stocks.
That's exactly right. And I think here's something really great. And when you and I first started investing, this was not the case. Back in the day, you had to pay commissions to buy stocks. And they were usually like $50 or $100. They could be more than that. But for a kid, it was very hard to start a portfolio with 20 stocks because you're basically paying almost $1,000 just in trading costs for a broker to get you shares. There's a second thing that's amazing today, since commissions, by the way, for many people are now down to 0, which is so great. The other wonderful development is that back in the day, you used to have to buy round lots of stocks. So if you wanted to buy Microsoft, you had to buy 100 shares. You couldn't buy 7 shares. You couldn't even sometimes buy 101 shares. It needed to be big round numbers. So here you are paying $50 to $100 just to buy a stock, and then you have to buy a bunch of shares to have a position. And that has now gone away as we enter the age of fractional share purchases. You can buy 0.7 of a share, right? 0.7 of one share. It's more just about the money you're putting into it. It's no longer about having to have a certain number of shares and paying trading costs. So there's a way of saying that starting with 20 investments, 20 stocks. I love investing in stocks directly. Not everybody will. I do. You can very easily diversify from the very get-go. And yes, Joe and everybody listening, I think you should start with 20 plus. And later on, as it goes up and the numbers go up, check what about 5% of your portfolio is. If you start with, let's say, $25,000 and now your portfolio is at $50,000, then 10% of that would be $5,000, which means 5% is $2,500, which to me would be the maximum that you'd put into a new position in that $50,000 portfolio. So max 5% allocation.
We are evaluating our companies. We're putting money in the winners, which also means there are some losers. And you and I have already talked about some of ours. But I love your 6th habit, which is aim for 60% accuracy, which means I feel like almost when we talk to Annie Duke about poker, David, that you can do all the homework, it can all be right, and you still somehow the market doesn't agree with you.
Yeah, I'm always aiming high. It's okay if we don't hit that because we aimed high. So aim for the stars, and even if you come up short, you might still have a moonshot. And so let's aim high. Let's aim high in life. Let's look for businesses that aim high. Let's raise it up. So I'm all about, for me, when I pick a new stock, I'm hoping it beats the market. I could have just bought an index fund. We could have done no work at all and simply enjoyed the market's returns. And obviously, that's what a lot of people do. But my lived experience is I don't want to buy an index fund because you have to buy all the bad companies and all the mediocre and average ones. I would rather just buy the best companies and outperform the averages, which a lot of academics say is not possible. And a lot of the world somehow believes the conventional wisdom, which is that it would just be luck to beat the markets.
Get that wrong, because I also think we get that wrong. You probably know Jack Schwager. He's been a great guest here with Market Wizards. And when you see these market wizards, I realize, David, that I don't want to be one of them. I'm fascinated by the research. I love the books. I've devoured all of his stuff.
Good for you.
But still, the work some of these people go through. I think the more difficult thing is when you're betting on other people, finding the person that's going to beat the index next year is difficult. And I think we also get confused about how your average mutual fund manager gets paid, because their incentive truly is in trailing the index slightly so I don't get fired, is my understanding.
Well, first of all, Jack Schwager, I'm very happy to say, while I don't know him personally, he was one of the beta test readers for the first 50 pages of my book.
Oh, was he really?
And in some nice comments. By the way, anybody I know you've authored a book, Joe. One of my tricks is send out the first 50 pages to a group of 15 to 20 people that you know and respect that have a motley array of different viewpoints. Jack was one of them. I'm actually not as familiar with Jack's work. And if it's really hard work, that would kind of explain why I'm not, because I personally don't want to have to work that hard. I love winning without doing much.
And I will tell you still, though, David, I'll still tell you it's pornography. You will get into it, and the way that you love stocks, even though you're not a trader, and a lot of these people in his books are traders.
Yeah.
It is amazing, though, how some people just continually beat the market. And I read it and I'm like, this is you, just the little time you and I spent together, you would love it.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate it. And you're right. I love people and approaches that beat the market. The reason that a lot of the world has become convinced that that would just be luck, and I'm not blaming any single person here, we can see how the logic would play out. But Burton Malkiel, with his book, A Random Walk Down Wall Street, sort of set in motion a notion that it's random, like to beat the market. And ultimately, Jack Bogle started Vanguard and really was powered up by that message. If it would be luck to beat the market, might as well just put it in index funds, low cost, great Vanguard index funds. And there's your largest asset gatherer of our lifetime. And the studies that usually are proving, in quotes, that you can't beat the market dependably are looking at it in a short-term time frame, usually year by year. And that's not what I do or how I think anybody should invest. I'm not trying to beat the market every year. I know, first of all, 1 year in 3, the market goes down. That is proven by history. So 1 year in 3, it's going to be bad anyway. But the other 2 years, it does go up. And I think for a lot of us, just realizing that we're not actually investing, we're living through that 3-year period over and over and over for our whole lives. And therefore, we don't have to beat it every year. And if we did it, it doesn't mean you can't beat the market. And so what's usually missing from studies or the academic view that it would just be luck is the long term and measuring long-term performance, where clearly you can beat the averages. And I believe it's not luck. So I think for a lot of us, it's just realizing we're not trying to beat the market every year. We're trying to beat the market over 10 plus years. How about our whole lifetime?
I want to ask you a man in the arena question, if you know what I'm talking about, man in the arena, because people like you and Tom, heck, we get it. You've been criticized by some big time people, which it's kind of like a badge, no less than Jason Zweig in the Wall Street Journal has talked about how amazing it is what you do, how you fire people up. And yet sometimes David's claims are a little big, right? I mean, we're wearing the fool hats. How do you process some of the criticism by people like Jason?
Well, first of all, I haven't seen that criticism for a while, but I admit I'm also not keeping up. For example, I don't watch CNBC, so I'm kind of disconnected from the financial media. But what I do remember back in the day is, as young guys, we were saying, we think you can beat the market. On its own, that is challenging the received wisdom. That is going against convention. And then we were doing it in our books and on TV and in magazines and on our website. And all along we were saying, and watch us, because we're picking every stock one a month transparently. Everybody can follow what we're doing. And yet we were in our 20s and early 30s. And we were wearing jester caps on top of all of that. And we were choosing to do that because we believe going against the conventional wisdom is what life's about if you're trying to win in lots of different contexts. I think the difference between the Motley Fool then and now is we now have 30 years plus of data. So anybody can see every good and bad stock that I've picked or my brothers picked. And I'm really happy to say that I have crushed the market for our members. And so while I guess as a 30-year-old, all you can really do is say, this is what I believe, this is what I'm going to do. But now that I'm almost 60, I can say, here are all the numbers. I was down there on the baseball field in the batter's box every single month for decades. Check it. And by the way, obviously, we think there are other great examples of people who've beaten the market. Warren Buffett comes to mind, Peter Lynch. These are all our exemplars. I can't speak for what any financial journalist believes or not, but I'm all about results. And the fun of writing Rule Breaker Investing Now, which is my final stock market book. I'm not a book.
It's it.
I'm not a new book every year guy. This is it. I basically am leaving it all out there on the field.
Wait, you could be like the Rolling Stones who say that every other year, and then you're back on the Stacky Benjamin show when you're 82.
First of all, have me back anytime. I've had so much fun with you, Joe. It's great to meet your mom and be down in the basement. And I will write probably at least one more book, and it will be an investing book. But now that you and I know, and everybody listening knows where that word comes from, you realize it's about life as much as it is about the stock market or business. And those are the three things. I have my own podcast, which is Rule Breaker Investing. And I say I spend a third of my time on investing, a third of my time on business as an entrepreneur, and lots of professionals listen, and a third of our time on life. So I do think that I will write one more book speaking to that. And that's about breaking the rules across all three of those. But this truly is my final stock market book. I've written several, although each time was with my brother. I wrote half the book with Simon & Schuster bestsellers over 7 years, but I haven't written anything in 15 years. And this is the first time I've written it all myself. And this is my final stock market book because I've retired from stock picking. I remain very active at the Motley Fool, but I'm not picking stocks. I put it all in there, what I do and how I think it wins and will win in every era, not just the last 30 years. But maybe the difference between me then and me now is I could only say what I thought would work back then.
Last shot here, David, which is, let's say that you could add a seventh. You know, when I finished my book, I'm sure you did this too. You get done, you're like, oh, I should have included this. What would your seventh habit be if you could add just one more?
Yeah, so I truly don't have one, but I always love the question because anytime someone says, Myers-Briggs or gives any framework, I'm like, well, what's the other letter that they didn't include? So I totally, in a pesky, fun way, love to always say, if there's 7 things, what's the 8th? So first of all, receive the question. Totally appreciate it. I'm going to make something up to honor the question. I'm going to give an answer, but I don't actually have a 7th. And one of the fun things about this final book from me is that I write the 6 traits of the stocks I'm looking for, rule breaker stocks. That's in the middle of the book. We didn't focus on that today.
Yeah.
But it's the same list of 6 that I published in 1999 in our bestseller, Rule Breakers, Rule Makers. That should be comforting. I'm not merely repeating myself. There are now numbers, stories, and additional insights, but I literally haven't changed that list 27 years later. And it led me to NVIDIA, Tesla, Netflix, companies that didn't even exist back in the late 1990s. And we found them and owned them, and we've made a lot of money with them. So I'm here to say that I like sticking with your knitting and not having a 7th. And here's my 7th for you. I think a great habit we should all be in is to care about what's happening in the world and show intellectual curiosity to read and keep up with the things that we think matter most. So if I had to add a 7th habit, again, these are for investors, but of course, to me, an investor is everyone. In fact, the first 4 words of my book is everyone is an investor. And that is truly my belief. If you ask people to raise their hand in a room, you as a financial professional, you're like, raise your hand, everybody who's an investor. I believe every hand should be up because we're constantly making investments, mostly of our time, occasionally of our savings. We're constantly investing. So when I say, what are the 6 habits of the rule breaker investor, and I had to add a 7th that's not in the book, I'd go with intellectual curiosity your whole life long, growth mindset, always be learning, ABL.
David's new book, Rule Breaker Investing, How to Pick the Best Stocks of the Future and Build Lasting Wealth. And the methodology is the same as it was 20 years ago when he and his brother Tom wrote this out for the first time. And as you mentioned, it now has all the anecdotes from using it for the past 20 some years. David, I can't believe we're this old, getting close to 60. What the hell happened, man? Thank you so much for mentoring our stackers, brother, and for putting the hat on for me. I appreciate it.
Oh, it is my pleasure. You're the one who put the hat on. You inspired me, Joe. And this was a really fun conversation. And stackers are lucky to have you. So thanks for your work.
Hey there, stackers. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and the focus of today's mission, Mission Impossible. The television show debuted on today's date way back in 1966 with The Hook being a mission tape that would always self-destruct. The series did anything but self-destruct, though. It blossomed into a huge film series featuring none other than my doppelganger, Tom Cruise. Talk about star power. Talking about me, not Tom Cruise. Here's a Mission Impossible question for you. Back in Mission Impossible 4, Tom Cruise really climbed outside in a building, rappelling down the side from the 123rd floor. What is the name of the building? I'll be back right after I go climb the stairs because my mission, which I totally choose to accept, is to sneak a few of those cookies from Joe's mom's cookie jar.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
What would you do if your online store converted 36% more shoppers? You could take 36% more vacation.
Another pina colada?
Yes, please.
Open a new retail location with 36% more square feet.
Fantastic.
Hire 36% more help.
You're hired and you're hired.
Shopify has the world's best converting checkout, up to 36% better than other e-commerce platforms. What you do with those extra sales is up to you. Switch to Shopify today at shopify.com/listen and get a $1 trial. Shopify.com/listen.
Did you know Fast Growing Trees is America's largest and most trusted online nursery with thousands of trees and plants and over 2 million happy customers? Whether you're planting fruit trees, adding privacy, brightening things up with flowers, or bringing in houseplants, Fast Growing Trees has it all. Even better, they can help you find options that are right for your climate, your space, and lifestyle. Click Order Grow. Every plant arrives healthy with the Alive and Thrive guarantee straight to your door. So if you're ready to get planting, this is the moment. Right now, they have great deals on spring planting essentials, up to half off on select plants. And listeners to our show get 20% off their first purchase when using the code WWO at checkout. That's an additional 20% off. Better plants and better growing at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code WWO at checkout. Fastgrowingtrees.com, code WWO. Now's the perfect time to plant. Let's grow together. Use WWO to save today. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions apply. Go to growingfasttrees.com for details.
Hey there, stackers. I'm cookie lover and guy, now serving 2 to 3 weeks of window washing duty for getting caught. Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug. Back in Mission Impossible 4, Tom Cruise, who famously does his own stunts for the film, actually climbed outside the tallest building in the world, beginning rappelling from the 123rd floor. To accomplish the stunt, the team used multiple harness points with special permissions to drill into the building to hold Cruise in place. Yeah, if he was fit like me, they wouldn't have needed all that support for him. During shooting, the team actually broke 35 windows. Even after the stunt, which involved multiple helicopters shooting at Tom Cruise, the film had to be flown back to Los Angeles before it could be evaluated whether the stunt had actually been captured. So what famous building did Cruise rappel down in Mission Impossible 4? That would be the tallest building in the world, located in Dubai, the Burj Khalifa. And now your mission, and you're going to want to accept it, Stacker, is to hop on over to Joe and OG and today's headline.
Oh, we'll do our headline in just a second. But OG, you saw Mission Impossible 4, did you not? Where Cruise is climbing the Burj Khalifa?
Yeah. I mean, I've done that myself.
That might have been one of my favorite Mission Impossible scenes. I like the one where he's running around Vienna and the Opera House. I thought that was kind of a classic Cruise scene. Of course, him jumping with the motorcycle, right? The big motorcycle stunt. Or
the thing I liked most about that particular scene, the motorcycle piece, was the backstory behind it. Did you ever see any like the making of?
No, but the making of all of these is phenomenal.
Dead Reckoning, is that Dead Reckoning 1? Is that the name of it? But anyways, the long and the short of it is that he has been trying to work that stunt into any mission, like the motorcycle jump off into a parachute, landing. Like he's been trying to fit that into any Mission Impossible, and and he could never. There's never a place to logically do it. And so then in this scene, as they're chasing the train and he's trying to catch up to the train, like, they're like, "Wait, this is perfect. I get to do the thing." And so they built the ramp and everything, and he made it digital so you couldn't see the ramp in real life, or on the camera. But they launched a bunch of motorcycles off this thing to make sure that it cleared. like how fast does he have to go? What the angle of the ramp has to be to like get far enough out. So when he falls, when the motorcycle falls and he falls, he's far enough away from the rocks to pull the chute and everything. It was kind of a fun little behind the scenes on that particular scene.
I wonder how many times he jumped shorter distances just to, get used to it.
I think they launched the motorcycle a bunch and then they strapped him on and off they went. Yeah. I don't think he did like, hey, let's jump off this rock real fast and see if I can make it. I think it was full go. I mean, it's widely known that Tom does a lot of his own stuff. Enjoys that part of the filmmaking.
You guys ready for something really shocking about Mission Impossible?
Sure.
I've never seen a single one of them.
Oh, I did not want to.
It's such a great popcorn flick. Like the whole series is, and the last one, I haven't seen the last one yet because it was in the theaters and I had tickets, and then my kids all took their friends and I wasn't one of the 6 people invited.
You got sacrificed.
Yeah. I was like, hey, I got 6 tickets. If you guys want to bring some friends, they're like, Dad, we can bring 5 friends. And I'm like, wait, but then
hold
on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many? You're bringing 5 people total? No, 5 plus me. 6. Then I'm the ratio of cake to people. That was my moment. So I still haven't seen that one yet, but apparently it was awesome.
My red stapler.
Yeah, I did not want to see any of them, Doug. I kind of had eye roll, and then I watched one, and I went back and watched them all because they are
and if you watch them all in order, that's a very interesting story. And then later they bring back like some of the stuff from like, there's some of the people and some of the characters, and you're like, wait, that guy was in like episode 2.
All these callbacks.
Like he was he's the mastermind of all this. Oh my gosh, he's the bad guy. I thought
I don't have any reason not to watch them. I'm not avoiding them. When I'm looking for stuff to watch, that just never crosses my mind. So I'll just have to put a sticky note on the TV.
Not a 10, but almost like the movie we talked about on Monday, solid 8.5, the whole series.
Wow.
But big thanks to David Gardner, by the way, for stopping by. Oh, gee, what I love about knowing about individual stocks is I feel like as you dive into individual stocks and you learn what's important to individual stock shareholders, you start to look at your own situation like you're a publicly traded company. So free cash flow, as an example, super important for a company. If you're going to invest in it, very important in your own life. The more free cash flow that you have, and this difference between what comes in the front door and what you're spending, man, that gives you the spells opportunities. Debt levels, right? Getting into huge debt can be super problematic. Not having any growth prospects, or what are your growth prospects? When David talks about the rule breakers, these companies that quote broke the rules to design new things, like what are you doing that's fun and exciting and purposeful in your life? I feel like there's so many analogies around individual stock investing and just good financial planning. It can really travel, even if you're not going to buy, like most of our stackers are not going to buy individual stocks, still can apply.
The parallels between that and the economy as a whole, and understanding how, just generically speaking, what you should expect from equity like returns or equity-esque returns. And when you put all those things together, and whether you put them together in an individual stock portfolio or you put them together as a single line item on an ETF portfolio or collection of mutual funds or whatever, or all those things all laid out, it still, I think, gives a good indication or a good lesson in how it makes sense as you look at the economy through the lens of companies making money, why they continue to grow and why owning stocks, as in particular, as compared to owning fixed income or having your money sit in cash, is far superior, despite the volatility, to any other sort of inflation busting or inflation protected or whatever you want to call it ideas, because the economy still continues to grow on the backs of all of these companies using those factors that he was talking about, whether it was cash flow or debt or whatever. It's like when you see it at a microscopic level, you can extrapolate, okay, this is how this works at the fund level. This is how it works at the country or sector level. Like, this is the economy. And why would I want to be invested in anything except the growth of the economy as a whole?
I remember reading Michael Lewis's first book where he's talking about being a bond trader and about how learning as he's trading about the dominoes in order. Like he was looking at the first domino and not making any money. And then he started thinking, okay, if this domino goes down and this domino goes down, and then he starts looking at second and third dominoes, and all of a sudden his trading gets better. It just kind of is a reminder of what Alex Hormozi talked about at the beginning of the year. Like you've got these two companies. You've got company A makes a really innovative, delicious hot dog, but they're out in the middle of a park in the middle of nowhere. They're at Grady Wallace Park in Texarkana, right? Where there's never anybody in this park except when there's softball and baseball games going on. Nobody ever there. And they're trying to sell this fantastic hot dog that the world needs versus somebody with a pretty mediocre hot dog, OG, sitting right in front of Yankee Stadium. Like who's going to sell more hot dogs? Sometimes it's about the innovation, and other times it's about the economy, the timing, all the stuff going around it that makes sense. And so learning to think about the big picture, not just with stocks, but with your whole life. Good stuff. Lots of analogies today, even for our non-stock investors. Hey, let's do a headline.
Hello, darlings. And now it's time for your favorite part of the show, our Stacking Benjamin's headlines.
Our headline today comes to us from the Investment News. And this is actually an opinion piece from Investment News written by CFP Todd Bryant. Todd writes about how financial advice has to evolve. You know, I thought this paired really well today with David's appearance because back in the early 90s, people weren't talking about trading stocks and having fun together. And over time, as things have morphed, I mean, back then, you were either trading individual stocks next to nobody or buying funds that were through advisors and buying funds that were actively managed by some woman or man buying and selling stuff, and you're evaluating their performance. And 90% of them recommended through an advisor channel. And look at how all of that changed. Now, a lot of people out there investing without advisors, and a lot of people that are going to advisors that really, they're not going there because they want to find the quote perfect fund, right? There's a whole different reason. So he's talking about in this piece how financial advice has to evolve as it has always needed to evolve. He writes, when I look back at how financial advice evolved over the last 20 years, it's striking how much has changed in terms of client expectations, the services we deliver, and ultimately the value that people believe an advisor brings. When I started the industry, the job was primarily about investments. And before that, it was even simpler. Clients went to a broker just to buy stocks. Over time, stockbroker turned into financial advisor, which later evolved into investment manager. But today, the only thing you lead with is investment management. You're not going to stand out. And what he talks about then is how the investing piece has largely become commoditized. And people go to advisors for completely different reasons. This piece, OG, is written for financial advisors. And it says that if you're not the most trustworthy person in your client's life, and you're not working with them on a behavioral level, if you're somebody who just, they come in and you're recommending insurances and you're recommending funds or whatever the case may be, you're a dinosaur. And especially AI is making that you're even more of a dinosaur. You have to be a person, not doing things the AI is never going to do, and being someone who is seen as much more than the guy who's bringing products to the table.
Well, I'm not worried at all about AI. If you put, at least not yet, if you put into ChatGPT, give me a portfolio that's great for a 30-year-old, it's going to just pick a bunch of tech stocks and whatever is top of mind in the socials right now. It's not at all well thought of in that regard. Solving the problems, I think it will do, like in terms of math problems and that sort of thing. But if you're an advisor, and I don't know who we want to talk to about this, but if you're an advisor and you're, like the article says here, leading with, we've got the greatest mutual fund in the universe, or we've got the greatest asset allocation tool in the universe, or something like that, I suspect that there's not a lot of takers for that, because there are tools, to your point, Joe, about like there's a lot of tech that's available to the public now, even that wasn't available 10 years ago. I think largely advisors are more counselors and guides than they are, the keeper of the knowledge. And that's what it used to be. It used to be You had to, right? If you wanted to buy stock, you had to use a broker. And then online brokers came out. And then it was like, well, if you wanted any sort of investment advice, you had to use an investment broker. And now you can get investment advice without using that, right? You can find tools online, or you can even use AI to have some conversation there.
Yeah, much less gatekeeper now.
Yeah, a lot less. And you see that with the products too, right? It used to be, well, if you wanted American funds, you had to go to the American funds place or the American funds guy or gal. If you wanted to use whatever company, you had to go to that specific place. And now, if you want American funds, you can put them in your Schwab account. If you want Vanguard, you can have it in your Schwab account. If you want iShares, you can have it in your Schwab account. There's no product differentiation in terms of where that stuff can sit anymore. So there's much less interaction, needed to be able to buy the stuff. You used to have to go to a life insurance sales guy if you wanted life insurance. And now 1-800-SELECT-QUOTE, you just go online and do it, or Ladder or whatever, you don't even have to talk to anybody now. You can just type it in. They'll digitally do your health screening based on the answers to your questions, and pull your medical records electronically and approve you right then. And that's a really great thing, by the way. I think that's really awesome because it lowers the friction and makes it so people can implement stuff. But I still think that as it relates to counsel and the human nature of advice, whether it's advice around financial planning or advice around taxes or advice around your health, any of those professionals, their value isn't writing the prescription because you can get those anywhere. The value is having the conversation about why you might need the prescription and recognizing that everybody is a little different and there's no one size fits all type of thing, and how you evaluate life and how you're working through your personal situation, I think makes all the difference. I think all of the stuff individually can largely be accomplished, but the collection of it and having the conversation is what the value is.
Yeah, I think even if AI gets smarter and is able to finally put together a much more efficient and better asset allocation for people, I think just the way that advice is measured has changed so much that that's almost irrelevant. It's almost like, we thought 7-8 years ago that robo-advisors, we kept doing all these pieces about robo-advisors and all these claims that robo-advisors were going to replace advisors. And look, at that didn't happen. There's more people going to advisors today than there was then.
Yeah.
And so why is that? It's because it's not about picking the stuff. And the robo-advisor proved your point, OG, that picking the stuff is not at all what we're looking to do. Now, ChatGPT hasn't figured out how to pick the stuff yet. That's just a function of how it's built. It's predictive in nature, looking at that what's the zeitgeist talking about. And so it's going to cobble together what most people are talking about, which is why you'll get a healthy dose of Bitcoin and NVIDIA in your asset allocation. I do believe that will change. But I also think that facilitating these conversations and being a filter, much more of a filter of, somebody walks into an advisor's office and they're talking about a bunch of stuff, and the advisor being able to go, okay, I hear you, but is any of that truly important? Is this actually what we need to talk about? I don't know when we're going to get to the point that AI is going to be able to be that person who can say to me, yeah, you know what? Great, but irrelevant. You don't even need to be almost like it's a filter. You know what I mean? Like somebody comes in, they have all these hopes and fears, and you're filtering out all the stuff that doesn't matter and just keeping the stuff that truly matters in the discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an AI expert in terms of where it's headed. It seems like there's a ton of opportunity there, but in my own personal experience, it seems like it's very much of an echo chamber. Like it's very happy in continuing a conversation with you about the stuff that it thinks that you want to hear.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's got the challenge component to it yet. You know what I mean?
Not at all.
It's like,
not at
like,
all.
oh, that's a really great idea. Yeah, let's explore that. And you're like, no, I don't want to explore that. And I don't think my idea is very great.
I asked you
You're
for a
right.
better
That's
one.
a not great idea. What would you like to talk about next? It's like it's very much of a yes man.
Yeah. And you have to spend so much time developing a relationship with your chat agent for it to learn how you want it to talk to you. Why not invest that time with a real human that is going to be able to incorporate so much more into the relationship than just telling you what you want to hear? I was working with it to try to create some images recently, and it just kept screwing it up so many times. I started to get snarky with it. I know that's a shock coming from me. And I'm like, man, you really fell on your face on that one. And its reply was, "You're right. I did. I'm sorry." Instead of saying, "No, I did exactly what you asked me to," it was just rolling over because it could tell I wanted it to roll over.
Yeah.
Whereas if I had said that to a human financial advisor and I said, "Man, that thing you recommended, that one stock didn't do so well," they would be able to say, "Yeah, here's why it was still the right choice." They wouldn't just roll over.
And I think that's why we have to evaluate our quote board of directors. Who are these people that I'm getting advice from? And am I using them as a trusted resource to guide conversations and maybe to get in my face a little bit? It's funny, not just with financial advisors, OG, but with insurance people. I've done this recently. I had a company I was using, and when I truly needed them, they were always happy to collect the premium. They were happy to quote, run a quote. If I called them, they were happy to run a quote. One of my neighbors is an Allstate agent. Allstate, not my favorite company, and a company that I think is hit and miss depending on the value of the agent. But this guy's amazing. This guy not only twice a year calls me and just wants to ask me if anything's changed and to give me just his feeling on the insurance industry and what's going on. He also, in a claim that we had recently during the construction we have going on at our house, he's actually working with my builder to fill out all of the stuff because the claims department wants all this technical language. And my builder even wrote about him and said, "Scott's amazing. Scott's just been so helpful getting this done." That's what I need my insurance person for. Otherwise, this is a 1-800 number. I think there's value for this person in life. I think it's not just even financial advisor or insurance. I think if you're that person that could be a good filter for other people, there's always going to be room for you. There's always going to be room. It's an interesting discussion. Love this opinion piece, and I will link to it in our show notes at stackingbenjamins.com. Well, guys, we did it again. Before we say goodbye on this episode, we always love having community time with a segment we call the Back Porch. Doug, let's hang out on the back porch a little bit. What's going on, brother?
Well, I've got one review I wanted to talk about. This is actually also from a couple of weeks ago, but the headline of the review caught my eye. It says, "Great show, religious listener." I thought, I don't know where religion comes into this. I don't care what faith you practice, but it says, "I can't give this show any less than 5 stars." And then I got it. Like I figured it out. They listen to us religiously. Now I'm on board, right? It says, "I listen to them regularly for so long. OG has great advice. Joe is very experienced and really cares about doing good for the community and others." So obviously this person's a little delusional because they have these great thoughts of you guys. So, big asterisk over this whole review, but nice positive things to say. And I thought you needed to hear that today, Joe. So they also, it's a longer review. They say they want to know more about me and my backstory. Maybe it's time to tell people that we can't really for government. I was a CIA agent. Okay. I'm just not allowed to talk about my backstory. I worked for a few different governments over my years. I'm just, contractually obligated not to talk about it, but positive review from a religious listener.
They do say something funny, and it is a long review, but they do say something funny about wondering about Joe and OG's background. They sound like they're, what does he say, rich or wealthy? Or he or she say rich or wealthy?
So, yeah, it actually says, so they never dive into what Doug's story is, and they often slip out things that make it seem like they are pretty rich. So they think we're all three of us. Pretty rich.
I think the question is,
not wrong.
Well, I don't know if they're presenting that as a good thing or a bad thing, but who do you want teaching you about money? I don't know at all what I'm doing. Can't practice it at all. I have no idea how any of this works.
It's like when I had my colonoscopy, if the doctor would have been like, "Now, which end does this go in?" And then you pass out.
He's got YouTube up on his phone.
Look at that. They don't even need anesthesia. You're out cold. Just think about what's about to happen.
The doctor takes a hit of the thing before he's like, and then gives it to you,
I think we're both going to need some of this.
It's like looking at the camera. Is this thing on?
We also got a nice note from Bear, B-U-E-R, in Norway over on Spotify. And Bear asked the question, do you know how many listeners you have in Norway? I think, OG, it's all the listeners. Don't we have all the listeners in Norway?
We do know.
And when we come to Norway for a live show, please come to Oslo.
Oh, God.
And it says,
I would do that in a heartbeat.
Please bring Paula Pant as well. I am coming to Oslo. I am.
Whoa.
However, I have a milestone birthday, which will be in 2028. And I will be coming to Oslo in 2028. So mark your calendar now. I have no idea what day. Just circle 2028.
Just the whole year.
Yeah. Yeah. And if we can get 3 Oslo-based listeners together, that would be fantastic. But I think that's our goal, OG, isn't it? To be number
Joe
one.
will try to submit it for a business expense. You'd be like, we had a work trip. It's $11,000 again. Like, wait, what? No,
I was there. I had to do a tour. Right.
Yeah, it's a work.
God, I would go. God, I mean,
No,
you've
you
heard us talk
wouldn't.
about skiing. I wouldn't go.
You wouldn't go. You wouldn't. I
As long as I
invited you
could
down
submit it.
here to come to a football game, and you said it was too expensive. It was like $240 to fly down here, and you were like, I can't. It's too much money. But you're going to fly halfway around the world. Yeah.
I want to go meet.
BS.
I want to go meet all the World Cup ski racers that are in Norway. I think I could probably bump into Kristoffersen and Amot and Svindal.
And you want to meet
They're just
Bear.
all walking
And
around.
Anna and
You want to
Elsa.
meet Bear
Stacker
would be
Bear.
fine too, only if he could introduce me to those people. But yeah, I would do that.
Number one in Norway. Stacky Benjamin Show.
I believe it.
That's going to do it for today. How do you beat that? Where do you go from being number one in Norway? You don't. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us. On Friday, our Phenomenal Roundtable episode is front and center, so we'll see you back here in a couple days. If you ever want to watch those recordings live, join us Monday afternoons, where we are live on YouTube making the show, which is a lot of fun with increasingly more and more stackers hang out with us during those recordings. If you get the 201 newsletter, stackybenjamins.com/201, on many of the days that we're recording live, we'll also send you a quick note saying, hey, if you're available, you can come join us. All right, that's going to do it for today. Except for this, Doug always tells us what are the big 3 things that should be on our to-do list after today's show.
Here they are, Joe. First, take some advice from David Gardner. When thinking about the financial markets, focus on what a company accomplishes, not just the technicals. Second, don't trust your advisor. Time to realize that trust is your biggest friend, and lack of trust can sink your financial plan. But the big lesson? Okay, this Mission Impossible theme has now officially gone too far. My mission, if I choose to accept it, is to run to the store for more gin for Joe's ma. No, Ma, I do not accept this mission. Wait, what? What? Okay, fine. I accept. God, that lady's terrifying. Thanks to David Gardner for joining us today. You'll find the new edition of Rule Breakers wherever you buy books. We'll also include links in our show notes at stackingbenjamins.com. This show is the property of SB Podcasts, LLC, copyright 2025, and is created by Joe Saul-Sehy. Joe gets help from a few of our neighborhood friends. You'll find out about our awesome team at stackingbenjamins.com, along with the show notes and how you can find us on YouTube and all the usual social media spots. Come say hello. Oh yeah, and before I go, not only should you not take advice from these nerds, don't take advice from people you don't know. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before making any financial decisions, speak with a real financial advisor. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and we'll see you next time back here at the Stacking Benjamin Show.
Oh, gee, you saw a movie. Or is it a TV show?
Not a movie. It's a long-awaited season 2 of a program that
Love is Blind UK.
It's actually coming out as a prequel. So season 2 is a prequel to season 1. That's already been out. So see if you guys figure this one out. Here you go.
Attention!
When we step on that battlefield, we fight for each other.
You're moving on a restricted target.
Which is why it's so hard to give up that brotherhood.
You had to shoot him to end the fight. An example needs to be made.
Along with this insignia comes the trust that we put in you to wear it. You've broken that trust.
I'm not going to apologize for what I did.
Thank you for your service.
Is it that obvious?
I need 2 shooters for a time-sensitive op. I'm offering you a chance to finish what you started. And to keep your brothers from danger.
If we do this,
eyes and ears in position.
I need to know that you can find the brakes.
You have my word.
You do not have to carry this weight alone. RPG!
The only way out is right through it.
I think I just watched the movie. Wasn't that the entire movie?
Wait a minute, hold on.
Show season? I know
Hold
what
on.
it is.
The only way out is right through it. Starts off with a discussion of battlefield, brotherhood, insignia. I'm not going to apologize. Your service. I have a time-sensitive op. I mean, this is all OG pornography right here. Yeah. All those words.
Is this the Great British Baking Show?
Like they totally play right into OG's psyche.
Can I guess?
I'm so
surprised. You asked me to guess. Is it Terminal List?
Yep.
Yeah.
Terminal List season 2, but it's a prequel. It's got Chris Pratt in it, but just a little bit. So he's not really the main character. Terminal List in the original season, Chris Pratt's the main character. This is filling in the backstory of one of the other characters that's in season 1, I guess. The best review that I saw on this said, it's like watching Call of Duty.
Which they're actually working on now. Is
of course they are.
Call of Duty. Yeah, of course they are.
Which is basically like any movie. But no, it's good. I mean, again, popcorn stuff. It's like Lioness. It's spy espionage. It's got a little James Bond. It's got a little bit of Call of Duty, wide open RPGs and kind of fun stuff like that. There's a lot of name brand actors in this. Again, people, you guys were talking on Monday about people that you go, oh, I've seen that guy before, or he seems to be in these movies. And so you'll recognize a lot of these actors, and I'm not good with names, but you'll say, oh, yeah, that guy's always typecast as the military boss. And this guy's always typecast as the Iraqi soldier that always helps the Americans. And you know what I mean? Like it's basically, you go, I've seen this guy in this role before. And
very specific.
Well, yeah, but even those lines from the trailer, Doug, are just so
I've never heard any of those lines before.
I don't know.
Said nobody.
I watched the first 3 episodes. It comes out on Wednesdays, so they launched the first 3, and then you can watch it on Wednesdays on Prime. By the way, one of the many subscription services that we have, because we are rich and we can afford them all.
Oh, geez.
Oh boy.
That's the next comment. These guys sound so rich they can afford all the subscription services.
All the streaming services.
Yeah.
I still love the fact that, you know, my cousin's idea of you only have one set of eyes, so I have one at a time.
Your idea is actually really, really sound, actually, or your cousin's, you know, just flip them on one at a time as you need them. I'm just not disciplined enough to do that.
Me too. Yeah. I've made it to 3 and I stopped. I can't get less than 3. I'm like, no, don't take it away.
There's only a place to like aggregate all these subscriptions into one. Just pay one flat fee for everything.
If only. Wouldn't that be wild? And now ESPN made it even better.
Yeah.
And by better, I mean worse.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Doug, you had a series too.
Oh, yeah. It's called The 100-Foot Wave. Have you heard about this?
No.
OG, you have?
It involves water, I can tell, but go on.
It got recommended me by somebody who would not like surfing at all. Surfing is the only sport I can think of that I really wished I had tried back when I was more physically capable, i.e. younger. But I totally get why people would get hooked on that. everybody knows I love skiing, and being able to just trench, as we say, meaning when you're really laid up on edge and carving a turn, that feeling is unbelievable. It's the second best feeling in the world. And I imagine surfing is like that as well, but I've never tried it myself. And this person recommended this show to me. It's got 3 seasons. It's Emmy nominated, and it's about a guy who sort of discovered Nazaré, Portugal, and the waves off the coast of Nazaré, Portugal are the biggest in the world. It's an extreme form of surfing. And the goal that so far, at least I'm in season 2.5 out of 3, hasn't been reached, is they're trying to be the first person to surf a 100-foot wave. They're up to and I think somebody got an 80-footer once. It's just an astound. When you see the little tiny person up against this wave, it's just jaw-dropping to think that they're out there and they're not dying. Because when it crashes on you, and they all do eventually, right? That's 8 stories of water that's falling on these people. It's unbelievable. And you really they produce it so well from a storytelling standpoint. You get to really care about all of the surfers and some of the main people they focus on. It's
Wait a
very
minute. So
well
this is
produced.
documentary.
It is. Yeah, this is not scripted. This is 100% documentary. The photography is unbelievable in it. They follow, I don't know, we got to be up to 10 or 12 different. There's one main guy who sort of discovered, his name is Garrett. He kind of discovered this thing, or was the first to break it open as a surfing destination. And he and his wife just made it their mission to, and the other surfers are like, oh, that looks pretty cool. And now it's this mecca of just terror.
This documentary series that, speaking of documentaries, that, started off with Formula One, Drive to Survive, and then went into tennis, 2 different football ones, golf, all these. I could not get Cheryl to watch them. One day she was watching quarterback with me, and she watched the rest of the episode.
Yep.
She's like, that was really good. That was really good. But she wouldn't come back for another episode. But I finally got her with Sprinter, where they have the top sprinters from around the world, and being a former track athlete, that got her. Following Shakara Richardson and some of the others has been really a fun series to watch together. I'm hoping it'll translate where she'll watch the rest of them with me, because they're all so fun to watch. It's all the same stuff, just different sports. So much cool behind the scenes and getting in your head, stuff like that. One more that I had, by the way, I finished Fisk, Doug. Fisk was a series that Doug recommended to me a long time ago that is great.
We did too. We finished that, except my partner decided to go watch 3 episodes without me. So I saw the first couple of episodes of this most recent season and then the last 2. So I've got to go back and fill in the gap in the middle. But yeah, just great light watch. Highly recommended.
30 minutes of comedians doing great work.
Super dry Australian comedy. Very good.